Okay, let's dive right into this explainer, because today we really need to dismantle a massive, absolute lie you've been told about how hard work actually yields results. If you've ever started a brand new habit, poured your heart into it, and felt like you were just completely spinning your wheels, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, I'm putting on my Mindset Coach hat to guide you through the actual mechanics of progress.
So here's the scenario we all know way too well. You decide you're going to make a change. You set a goal, you build a routine. You wake up early, you put in the reps, eat clean, read the right books. Basically, you're doing everything completely by the book. But then, after the first few weeks of this really intense effort, you look around and absolutely nothing has changed. Your bank account is exactly the same, your body looks the same, you feel the same. And that is exactly when a very specific, highly dangerous thought creeps into your mind.
I mean, we've all asked this, right? And the moment you think this, you inevitably quit. Or maybe you change your strategy and start completely over from scratch. But here is the crazy truth. Your strategy didn't fail. Actually, you simply walked into a psychological death trap, and your own brain engineered your failure. To understand why this happens, we have to look at how we're actually measuring our efforts. See, there's a fundamental disconnect between what you expect to happen and what is actually happening. As human beings, you and I are biologically wired to expect a one-to-one linear return on our hard work. You put in 1 unit of effort, you expect exactly 1 unit of result. But nature, human biology, the economy, they don't operate on linear scales at all. They operate on an exponential scale. And what this means is the vast majority of your early effort yields virtually unnoticeable returns. So the absolutely crucial point here is that this space, the gap between the linear results you think you deserve and the exponential results actually happening beneath the surface, creates a massive deficit. That deficit is what we call the valley of disappointment. It's literally a psychological wasteland. You're trapped in this phase where you're doing everything perfectly right, but you are getting absolute zero validation for it. If you find yourself in this brutal deficit, I want you to know it's a feature of physics. It is not a flaw in your effort. The root cause of why this feels so terrible to us comes down to biology. Your primitive brain hardware is literally interpreting your lack of immediate reward as a fatal threat to your survival. Just think about it. Our brains evolved to hunt and gather. They demand immediate dopamine and caloric reward for any physical exertion. So when you delay gratification for a modern, long-term goal, your primitive brain sounds a massive internal alarm system. It is literally telling you that you're wasting precious energy on a failed hunt.
Let's move into Section 1, the physics of invisible progress, specifically looking at the melting ice cube analogy.
This analogy is incredible, and it'll permanently change how you view invisible progress. Imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a freezing cold room. The room is currently 25 degrees. Now you decide you want to melt that ice, so you start expending tremendous amounts of energy to heat the room up. You're just pouring in effort. You turn the temperature up degree by degree, 26, 27, 28, boom, now you're at 29 degrees. You've done all this hard work, yet at 29 degrees, that ice cube hasn't changed at all. It just sits there, basically mocking you. You push it to 30 degrees, still nothing. You're experiencing a total lack of visible progress here. And this is exactly like complaining you haven't seen success after grinding on a new business or a new diet for a month.
31 degrees. The pain and the boredom peak right here. You just feel like giving up because your brain cannot see what is actually happening beneath the surface of the ice. You genuinely feel like all your energy was for nothing.
But then you hit 32 degrees. Suddenly, the ice begins to melt. A single 1-degree shift seemingly unlocks everything. But listen to me carefully on this. It wasn't that single degree that melted the ice. It was the accumulation of all your previous invisible work, from 25 to 31 degrees. As a mindset coach for high performers, I promise you this is the absolute most vital paradigm shift I can offer you from our source material today. When you're stuck in the valley of disappointment, your work is not being wasted. It's being stored. You are heating up the room.
The problem, though, is that your brain cannot physically see this stored potential. So what does it do? It attacks your confidence. It initiates severe anxiety, induces physical and mental fatigue, and triggers intense imposter syndrome. Every single one of these are biological defense mechanisms designed to forcefully stop you from what your primitive brain perceives as wasting calories.
All right, moving to Section 2, System-Driven Identity. This is our practical guide to surviving the plateau. So how do we actually fight back against our own biology?
Well, the source material gives us an exact 3-step playbook to make you completely immune to that desire to quit when times get tough. Let's break these down so you can start applying them to your new habits literally today.
Step 1 is switching completely from a goal-driven focus to a system-driven focus. Remember the ice cube? You can't control when the ice melts, but you have absolute control over the thermostat. Stop measuring your outputs daily. Don't look at the scale, the revenue, or the subscriber count. That's the melting ice. Instead, measure your binary daily inputs. Did you do the work today? Yes or no? That is literally the only metric that matters.
Step 2. Standardize before you optimize. The main reason busy young professionals burn out in the valley is by trying to be absolutely perfect before they establish any real consistency. Strip your habit down to the absolute bare minimum required to just show up. Lower that barrier to entry so much that it becomes psychologically impossible to say no. Don't worry about the perfect 1-hour workout. Standardize the habit of just putting on your shoes and walking for 5 minutes first.
And step 3, expect the plateau. Just set the expectation right now that you will see zero visible reward for the first 30 to 90 days. By fully accepting this reality up front, you proactively disarm your primitive brain's alarm system. When the results don't show up in week 2, you don't panic because you're no longer surprised by the lack of results. You expected it. You're simply in the storing phase.
Now for Section 3, Mastering the Boredom. This is the elite playbook for the silent tipping point.
Let's look at the collective story of the people who win at the absolute highest levels. Because I'll let you in on a secret. They aren't naturally smarter or more gifted than you are. They just operate with a completely different mindset. The elite have simply mastered the art of falling in love with consistent boredom. Take a world-class Olympic swimmer, for example. Long before they become a household name, they spend 4 highly unremarkable years staring at a black line at the bottom of a swimming pool for 5 hours every single morning. They do the exact same boring foundational routine day in and day out with absolutely zero recognition. They learn to work in the dark, fully trusting that their energy is being stored.
Look at how they operate. They do the work in the dark. They completely ignore the lack of applause. They trust that energy is being stored. That swimmer understands that the true breakthrough will not be a loud, immediate victory during an early morning practice. It'll be a sudden, silent tipping point built entirely on the back of invisible progress that finally culminates right at the finish line. 31 degrees turns to 32, and everything changes.
That is the defining question for anyone who wants to master elite execution. When your brain starts screaming at you that you're wasting your time, what are you going to do? So stop staring at the ice cube, trust your system, do the invisible work, and I will catch you in the next explainer.